As we wait for the student athletes, Coach, if you want to go ahead and get us started with your opening statement, we can do that. And then once the student athletes get to the podium, we can get to questions for them.
Sure. Obviously, we're still standing here on the backside, and this could have easily gone other directions, the last few days. I feel for Iowa. Rick Heller's a class act, and he runs a class program, and if things just roll differently and they don't get down in their pitching, this game could have gone much differently. So we're fortunate that they were even taxed a little more this afternoon, didn't have a lot of bullets left. We tried to hold arms back, thinking if we play tomorrow, we'll at least have some insurance policies back there, and we didn't want to go too deep. But our hand was forced a little bit. We didn't get a deep start on the mound, so we kind of had to scramble a little bit. And fortunately for us, Keegan Watson hit the huge 3-run homer, and Simon Gregerson really stabilized the game on the backside.
All right, thanks, Coach. So we'll get started with questions for the student athletes. Again, if you have a question, raise your hand, and we'll get the mic to you to ask questions. State your name and media affiliation, please.
Cody Emerson, Journal Review. Simon, to really pitch the final 3 1/3 of that inning, when the team, Coach, they really needed a sure arm. And really after that solo home run that you gave up, you just seemed locked in. I think struck out 6. And what was your mentality going up, knowing that your team needed you to come through?
Yeah, definitely having our guys on the background, they gave me all the inspiration that I really needed. You can tell, looking back at your guys in the field, that they're going to do everything they can to kind of keep you going and keep you squared away, and that was definitely everything I needed.
For each of you, I'm Michael Presti, NCAA.com. No matter what situation it'd be in, to win this would be meaningful. But when you do it, that hasn't been done for 3+ decades, how meaningful is that to be a part of that?
For me personally, I can't even really put it into words right now. All of the guys behind us, all of our teammates, all of our coaching staff have done an absolutely spectacular job this year preparing us for moments like this. And I don't think it's really set in for me personally yet, but to have these experiences under our belt serve us really well later on in this tournament. So.
Yeah, I echo that completely. We came in, we were fortunate enough to have a lot of old guys that definitely took in roles of great leadership. We have a lot of older guys that kind of get right behind you and tell you that you can do it. And it was definitely our coaching staff for me. They grilled it into us really early that we have a chance to do something really special. And, we're just doing everything we can to make it true.
Jeff McCoskey, WTHI. Just for both of you, the fans all weekend, can you guys just touch on what they gave you guys all week and what that meant to come out and see those every single game?
Having Bob Warren Field as packed as it was an unbelievable sight, and I can't even begin to explain the rush that it was to hear them cheering whenever something good happened for us. The motivation it gave all of us. You see it when we play. Guys are looking at the crowd, trying to get them hyped up, trying to get them to yell for us. And, they were a huge part of our success, I believe, having so many people backing the Sycamores this weekend.
Yeah, just like our teammates backing us up, it seems like all of Terre Haute was out there. We've definitely had a great success with our fans. They've packed the Bob all weekend, and we can't be grateful enough for them, definitely.
Grant Pugh, WTO. Has it set in yet? Pitching, defense, in a high-scoring game. Still, it comes down to some pitching and defense. You guys, you're going out there on the mound, Gregerson. The way ISU defense is played all week, and they've got your back.
Yeah, definitely. We came in and right away in the huddle, they were all sitting there. Hey, we got you. Use the defense. We got your back. We're going to win this game. We're going to shut it down. And to be up there, you kind of feel alone sometimes. But with the ISU defense, it feels like you have your whole family behind you. You know, we cover just as much ground as anything out there. And to be up there and being able to throw freely without having to worry about it, it's undescribable.
I have a question here in the front.
Cody Emerson, Journal Review. Just when you guys have been chipping away offensively, it seemed like all game with a single here, a walk there, a hit batsman there, but you just never seemed to be able to pull away, and you just seeming like you guys were just so close of getting that big hit, and then you obviously came through with a huge 3-run home run. What was that just like throughout the game, knowing that if we get a double here, a home run there, or whatever, we can kind of really open this thing wide open and pull away.
Yeah, offensively, I think our team did a wonderful job of seeing baseballs tonight. Obviously, their pitching staff and our pitching staff struggled, just kind of blow for blow, punch for punch the whole game. And we, like you said, we were one hit away the whole game. I don't know how many free bases they gave us, and we just couldn't capitalize on it to save our lives. But credit to our offense for hanging in there and sticking with the mistakes that they made as a pitching staff on the other side.
Do we have any more questions for the student athletes? All right, we'll let you guys get back with your teammates and celebrate the win. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
All right, this time we'll open up for questions for Coach Hannes.
Yeah, Patrick Eber with D1 Baseball. Coach, you mentioned in your opening statement just, the balance of kind of like saving your pitching just in case you do pitch tomorrow. But you also mentioned how Iowa was, kind of at a disadvantage. So at what point in that game, and what's the message to your team where you kind of have to put your, foot on the gas and really give it to them?
Well, I think, the one of the reasons I mentioned class program, we've all watched enough college baseball to know that there are a lot of people that would bring a young man back on one day's rest to try to win a game. The fact that, they were just going to try and survive with what they had and not put any arms in jeopardy, that to me is first class. And I think the big thing for us was knowing that they were down, but yet trying to remain patient enough and not go up and just swing into outs and make them pitch a little bit and work deeper in counts. And I thought we did it at times, and then I thought we got guys on base, and there were some guys were too patient and some guys were too aggressive. We couldn't find that balance to hunt out a good pitch and get a good swing. It seemed like when we were swinging early, we were swinging at breaking balls in the dirt, or we were taking fastballs in those bases loaded situations. So and then they brought the lefty in, and I was thinking, man, we got to get this guy out of here, because with that release point and that ball riding, I thought, boy, if he settles in, we're in a lot of trouble, because it's not an easy guy to hit, and there wasn't a lefty in our dugout that wasn't scared to death. So I felt like, we got the bases loaded and we got a lefty up there, we check swing. We got a few guys on, and we get 2-0 and we get jammed and pop it to third. And it just felt like when he needed to make a pitch, or when their guys needed to make a pitch there for a while, they were able to. And I think that was the tough balance. You go up there, you get a starting pitcher that's pounding around the zone. We were even talking about hitting and running and doing some things, but because of the erratic arms that we were facing, you were pretty much stagnant. You didn't want to steal, because if they're not throwing strikes, you don't want to run into outs. You don't want to hit and run, because you may not get anything close to hit. So it really kind of put us on our heels, in a sense. So it was tough digging up all day, and our on our end, we didn't pitch it overly well. So you felt like we really needed a few of those hits because they were scoring. So that added pressure to score in some of those situations. Seemed like it really weighted on us throughout the game.
Becky, Michael Presti, NCAA.com. Just as a baseball guy who's been around the game a long time, when you look at nationally this weekend, you guys are in a super regional. Penn has a chance to get there. 5 regional hosts are already eliminated. Charlotte takes out Clemson. Xavier takes out Vanderbilt. Is the message at all here of the depth and breadth of the game of college baseball with some of the things we've seen this weekend?
It's interesting you asked that. That's something we've talked about a lot. I think as the year has gone, there's not that one team that you look at like some teams in the past and say, boy, I wouldn't want to play that team. And that was for most of the season. And then here in the last 2 weeks, I don't think anybody did TCU end up winning big? I think TCU is slowly becoming that team that nobody wants to play. So I'm hoping our bracket shifts if they beat Arkansas. But there hasn't been that one team that you look at and say they have this or they have that. You know, some of the teams that have the lockdown arms maybe don't have the offense to go with it, or the really good offenses have struggled to pitch it at times. So in terms of a balanced team, it's been hard to find one throughout the season. They're there, but they haven't played consistent enough to say they're really a balanced club. So there has not been that scary club to this point.
Paul Shepard, Indy Star. Coach, these players are entering uncharted territory. You were there as a player in '86. What do you remember from that experience as a player, and are there things that you can take from that to potentially help prepare your guys for this next round?
Well, I spent most of that on the bench. I remember getting a free bat. That was a big deal. You know, when you're there as a kid, I was a freshman, and I was a backup. Didn't play a ton that season, but you really don't realize at that moment as a young man what you're really a part of. As time goes by, you say, man, that was a pretty big deal. And so I think these players are kind of in the same mode. I don't think they truly realize the depth of all this, like, you know, everyone sitting in this room that has watched and really understands college baseball over the years. You know, they're in their cycle of being in college, and I hope they don't realize it. I hope they just go out and play, and that's something that you hope that they don't feel it. And you know, at this point, they are underdogs, and that's the best place to be in a lot of these situations.
Coach Jeff McCoskey, WTHI, you mentioned this being a big deal. How can you put into words how big of a deal and how much this means to a city of like Terre Haute, to a program like ISU, and to you and this team? Well,
I told these guys, and you guys have heard me say it, there are groups that come along that change programs. They're a special group. They're very close. They're connected. They do things the right way, and they work really hard to get better, and they're very humble. And people want to cheer for groups like that. And I think I got so many calls throughout the season. I got texts from other coaches, you know, colleagues that mentioned how much they liked watching our club play. And, you know, that's a testament to these young men and the way they've gone about it all year. And I really felt like that's one of the reasons, you know, these fans showed up, but they've watched these guys, whether it be on TV or hearing about it, run through walls all season long. And dive and do whatever it took, stand in and get hit by a pitch, whatever it took to win a game. This group has done it, and they have truly changed the trajectory of our program.
Luke Martin, Indiana State. Coach Hannes, back in February, he told me, I hope we get off to a great start, but my focus is on how the season ends.
Sure.
What did you and your staff do in the months of February and March? It wasn't a great start, but you said your focus as the head coach was, I'm worried about how this season's going to end.
Well, you always say that when you're 2-8, Luke. You just try to point somewhere else other than right now. I think that, like I said earlier, one of the alumni that was out there on the field just a minute ago called me, one of our former players, and said, "Coach, 2-8, do we suck this year?" And so I reminded him quickly out there. I said, "Calm down. Northeastern's pretty good." They kicked our tail down in Florida. I think the tough thing was to point forward, but we weren't doing some things that we needed to get better at. And I think, you know, we went to Southeast Missouri State, and Coach Sawyers asked if we wanted to practice. We talked about practicing, and I said, yeah, we'll be out there about an hour and a half. And I saw him the next day, and he said, I didn't realize you're going to be here 3.5 hours. We had a lot of game-type stuff we needed to do. And I think we spent every practice, even in the middle of games, just getting live reps, whether it be live base running reps, live coach pitch stuff, live defensive reads. So I think we just needed a lot more game type situations, and we lacked that coming out of the tin can over there because of the winter. But I think as we got more and more time, we started to see this club and what they were capable of.
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Grant Pugh, WTWO. Coach, I mean, you've built this program for years. You just touched on former players. What's going through your head? You're not a counting outs guy for sure, but what's going through your head in the bottom of the ninth? You get 2 outs, you get 2 strikes, and you think about how special, this night really is for you in this program.
Well, the first thing you're thinking is let's just get this first out, and of course Simon was really good, and you really don't have that moment because you're involved with the pitch calling, so you don't get a chance to set back. And I really thought a little bit during the game, I thought, man, Randall Diaz he didn't get a throw this week. His arm's been bothering him. He dove back in the tournament, and he's had a stoved up shoulder, and I thought, man, we stuck him out there at short, and you guys could see he wasn't carrying the distance. Nothing like Randall's arm normally is. So, there were a couple of things that happened early on that those are the things you think about as a coach, what you could have done differently. I just felt there were a couple moments that we did some things that didn't work out. And so that's what you're going through in your mind in the dugout. You're going through what didn't work and, hey, what were we going to have to do if Simon doesn't get this next guy? And even with 2 outs and nobody on, you're thinking, man, if they get a guy or 2 on, because Iowa just would not go away. They came to play, and those guys had to be tired, and they had a long day, and they had a tough turnaround last few days. So that's really all I was thinking about is how in the world are we going to get out of here without getting guys on base.
Coach, you guys have obviously faced a ton of Power 5 teams all throughout the course of this successful season, and now here you beat another one twice in the span of 2 days. What do you want maybe the rest of the country who isn't paying quite much attention to Indiana State? What do you want them to know about your guys?
We've won some Power 5 games, and a lot of those are midweek games. I don't want to sit up here and make it sound like we've just dominated Power 5 teams. We haven't. We haven't seen their weekend rotation. This was a good test. I mean, we had to beat Breck last night. It's different playing against these bigger programs when they have their guys on the mound. When you play a midweek game, obviously, whether it's Vanderbilt or anybody else, they're throwing some guys that haven't gotten a ton of work if they don't have a 4-starter established. And so we're fine sitting right here in our little crevice. I'm certainly not going to call out any Power 5s.
Final question.
You had 10 guys hit by a pitch tonight. I think 5 of them scored. I think you had a conference game where you had 8 hit, 125 for the season. Is there any reason for that, or is it just happen? And how important of a factor has that been in what you guys have done?
Well, I think some things kind of grow legs that you talk about. Again, I like that guys stand in and don't move. But if Breck runs one at your kneecaps, I think you probably better move, right? And so it's easy to be tough with someone else's body. I mean, we're just standing in, and they wear all that padding anymore, so it's not like guys are. I know Rivera got hit pretty good, even though he had a guard on, but we just try to keep the line moving, and if guys run the ball in, we just try not to move. It's not every guy. The guys will tell you we got a few guys that still get out of the way pretty often, but it's the guys that they've kind of bought in, and it's the good teams are all player driven, and if one guy's going to do it, then every guy's going to stand in there, and that's why that's kind of taken off. We don't have practice where we throw at guys and make them stand there.